What's going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying safe, healthy, and having a great weekend so far. If you had to take a COVID test, flu test, RSV, or some other virus, I hope you have tested negative. If you did test positive for any of the viruses, I hope you have a full and speedy recovery with no long-term, and of course, if it's COVID, no long COVID issues. It is time now for the Sunday edition of the virus update for Sunday, February 16th, 2025. If you're new to my channel and never seen one of my virus updates before, basically what we do here is much like the news you see on TV. We basically start off with the news of the day, then we give you the data of these viruses, and of course on Sundays we do wastewater updates. We do more in-depth wastewater update because you need to know what's going on with the level of these viruses in your area. The news, yeah, they give you a health report within that news story, but it's only about this long. It's not long enough. I dedicate a full 15 to 25 minutes on these viruses. So if you're new, subscribe to my channel down below. Help me on my journey to 10,000 subscribers this year. I want to keep as many people informed as possible. Heck, let's try for more than 10,000, but for now, let's see if we can get 10,000 by the end of the year. Hit that like button, helps me in the algorithm. Share this video with anyone you know. Hit the notification bell, and leave your comments down below. Already a quick note and a good reminder for you before we start today's update. Tomorrow is Doctor's Day for me. Now, I scheduled this doctor's appointment long before I had COVID and the mystery virus in December and January. But when I scheduled my appointment at the end of the last appointment, I scheduled it for first appointment, or if I could, it's going to be 8:15 in the morning. Always a good idea if you're someone that wants to be COVID cautious and you want to try and avoid being infected in healthcare, try for the first appointment of the day. It's usually the best time to do it. The waiting room has not been filled with patients yet. You're not mixing and breathing in air from people who may have been coming in sick. You get my point. The first portion of the day is the best time to do it. Alrighty, we have just a few news stories today. Then we're going to look at some data, and I do have a few surprises in the data today. Maybe something you'll like if you live in any of these areas. We do have some different areas, and same can be said for the news. We do have some things from other areas today. So let's get into it. And of course, the second half of this video, if not longer, will be dedicated to wastewater. Starting off in Missouri, flu cases have doubled between January and February. No surprise there. They reported over 14,000 flu cases to the CDC in week 6 between February 2nd and February 8th, and January 5th to January 11th, 5,000 cases. So you can see this second wind, this second rise of flu, yeah, it's really gone up. And Missouri is no stranger to it either. I mean, it's happening everywhere. All right, here's something, and I think I've had this happen a few times. I know I've had this happen a couple times. Concentration problems identified in long COVID. Now, I say I've had this happen. I've also had it happen well before COVID. I had ADD as a child, but most recently it has kind of brought that issue back post-COVID. Swelling in an area of the brain associated with memory and concentration has been identified in long COVID and chronic fatigue patients by Australian researchers. Now, I'm not diagnosed with chronic fatigue, but I do get fatigue sometimes in the middle of the afternoon where my eyes will get watery, I'll get really tired, but no matter how many times I try to take a nap when that happens, I just can't fall asleep. Really weird. Sometimes in the evening I'll fall asleep like 7 to 8 o'clock and wake up, oh, it's 10:30, and then can't go back to sleep for the majority of the rest of the night. It's really strange. But yes, this is confirming something we've heard many people with long COVID talk about. Here's something else that confirms something we know. Studies suggest COVID-19 infection no longer grants long-lasting immunity. We have known that since the start of Omicron, and really that's where this research comes from. New research suggests that natural immunity after a COVID-19 infection has fallen sharply since Omicron became the dominant variant. My hope is we see a lot more studies come out like this. And you're probably going, well, why do you want more studies like this? I got good reason. I have a very good reason. I think a lot of people can agree with me on this. We need more studies on this because there are so many people saying, oh, natural immunity is really a way that we can keep the infection levels down and keep the severity down. No, natural immunity is not, and I could do a whole episode of the virus update just on why COVID natural immunity is no good. Anything from each infection increases your chance of long COVID. Each infection could be more severe in some people. On and on the list goes. Natural immunity from the virus itself is a bunch of hogwash. It's clear now that we're seeing more studies. It doesn't prevent future infection, and for some people, it doesn't last all that long. We have seen many different people come forward and say, yeah, I had COVID in January or whatever, and in March I had COVID again. What the heck? I thought that wasn't supposed to happen. In some cases, it does happen. We've seen reports, and we've seen so many reports that getting infected again is not good. It can mess up your immune system. On and on I could go. Not going to. All right, here's the first surprise out of many surprises in today's update. The latest variant picture for Canada. This is from Mike Honey. I do have something else from him as well. XEC variants took over dominance from DEFLU KE variants in late December, but both have been falling since. LP.8.1 variants are the leading challenger, growing steadily to around 14%, and it's growing here in the United States as well. So check that out. LP.8.1 variants growth show a 2.1% advantage per day, 15% per week over dominance XEC. So yes, the LP.8.1 is headed to be the next variant that takes over there. And hey, we got variant data from Mike Honey for the United Kingdom. Here's the latest variant picture for there. XEC remains dominant, but growth has stalled to around 70%. The LP.8.1 variants have grown to around 14% frequency. So if you're wondering why the UK hasn't seen a new big wave in a while, it's because XEC is not much different from the other variants, and well, LP.8.1 is still around 14%. We'll have to wait and see what happens when that variant does get higher in percentage point. And right now the CDC is estimating here in the United States, I'm pretty sure I have it here. Here it is. CDC is estimating that it is at 31% at this time in the United States. So we're actually ahead of some of the other countries, which means if that's correct, we could actually be an indicator for what could happen for some of these other countries just because of that. All right, moving on now. This is in Ireland. HSE Ireland warning over surging illness symptoms as stay home for 48 hours order issued. And I don't know that people are actually going to follow that, but the point being made is it sounds like the norovirus is really starting to spread over in Ireland. It's causing a huge increase in the number of people getting sick, throwing up, diarrhea, that sort of thing. So yes, that's something to keep an eye on. Alrighty, first part of Wastewater Sunday. Here we go. It's the Wastewater Scan weekly data. I don't know that we're going to read the whole thread, but we're going to read parts of it. Respiratory weekly update. SARS-CoV-2, influenza A, and RSV are all in the high category nationwide. The other respiratory viruses, influenza B, HMPV, and EV-D68, we monitor remain in the low wastewater category nationwide and not in seasonal onset. COVID nationwide, still in high category with high concentrations and no significant upward or downward trend in the last week. I don't understand what really makes that make them come to that conclusion. I mean, there is a little bit of a downward trend here. I guess it's because of the national level. But when you take a look at the regions, you can see here, there have been significant ups and downs that have gone on over the past few weeks. COVID-19 variants in sequence. Now, mind you, this is going to sound a little bit different than what we just talked about. Variants in sequence data from a subset of wastewater scan sites. We are seeing KP.3 variant in light blue at 32.3% and XEC in green at 30.8% make up approximately 63% of the variants. Note, sequencing data has a longer lag of 1 to 2 weeks after collection. Influenza. Nationally, flu A is in a high category with high concentrations and no significant trend over the last 3 weeks. I don't understand that one because flu has been rising here in the United States. Flu B is in the low category nationally, but in the high category in the West, we have seen flu B starting to rise in some areas. And H5 influenza has been detected now in 19 states. Yeah, that's not a good thing. RSV is in the high category nationally with high concentrations with no significant trend over the last week. Levels are increasing in the Midwest, and norovirus is the other one that I want to talk about. Norovirus is in the high category nationally with high concentrations and a downward trend over the last 3 weeks. All regions remain a high category, and what the heck, we might as well mention this as well. EV-D68-EV EVD68 is in the low category nationally, and all regions are very low, with exceptions to the West Coast. That's not a virus that we study much. I usually only talk about the viruses that I'm educated enough on. Apologies on that. I wanted to show you this. I almost forgot to mention this today. 50 snow geese are dead of HPIA, highly pathogenic avian influenza near Seneca Lake in Thompson County in New York State, and in Nebraska, highly contagious bird flu reported in Saunders County. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So yes, two more concerns with bird flu today. Taking a look at the viral activity levels in Canada, moderate for COVID, flu A is high, flu B is moderate, and RSV is listed high at this time. All right, skipping over the air quality today because that's going to be messed up from this big storm that's in the east. Taking a look at what happened in Philadelphia yesterday, and apologies, I do need to actually pull that up. There we go. Saturday, 763 EMS incidents. That is lower than the previous day. Live looking at what's going on in Montgomery County shows things are not terribly busy right now. 14 active calls. That is a little bit busy for a Sunday. And taking a look at what's going on in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Yes, this is busy for Chester County on a Sunday. We see stroke, sick person, respiratory difficulty, injured person, falls, several different things going on there at this time. Hospital picture. Not terrible in Pennsylvania. We do have a few hospitals that don't normally show. Fulton County Medical Center being one of them. Emergency department overcrowding is being reported there. Taking a look at New Jersey, and let's see, do we have anywhere with problems today? We do see Inspira. A medical center in Malka Hill is dealing with a patient volume issue, and looks to be that's the only hospital there. So that is some good news. All right, moving on to this. Illinois respiratory dashboard. Take a look at this. This is the respiratory surveillance, and it looks like here that the levels do remain high. And it looks like COVID has rose ever so slightly. Influenza hospital admissions have gone up ever so slightly. RSV at this time is not doing terrible, but there are still people being admitted for RSV as well, and it looks like emergency department visits due to acute respiratory illness is at 20.5%. So a pretty decent sized percentage is still showing up for respiratory viruses. That's not a good thing whatsoever to be seeing that still this far into the season. In Houston, taking a look at their wastewater data, Houston, Texas, that is, we do see the majority of wastewater sites are flat. I do see a few that are dropping, and a couple that are rising at this time. So overall, it's not terrible with so many being flat, but there are some that are still rising at this point. Something that is still terrible is Texas. Weekly emergency department visits by age group, and yeah, take a look here. For RSV, not COVID, RSV, 881 visits for the week of February 8th. Influenza, still 21,634. That's a really high number. And COVID-19 was at 1,713. That was down slightly from the previous week. And as was influenza, everything is hopefully has peaked and is starting to drop, but still some high levels showing up there, and there is definitely some work to be done. All right, going over to wastewater scan now, we're going to do national and each region. And on the most recent update for COVID, it does show here a little bit of a rise. We'll have to see if that gets corrected. I'm not sold on that, but it does look like the majority of these viruses did the same thing. We see that with this sometimes on wastewater scan. RSV is listed high, as was COVID, and it was slowly dropping. Little wonky movement at the end. I think it's going to continue to drop. You can see the drop has slowed a little bit. Hopefully it will pick up the pace again. Influenza A. Yeah, take a look at this. It was trying to peak. Now it's rising a little bit again. Hopefully that changes soon. Influenza B. We're watching this rise. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Perhaps maybe Influenza B ends up having a spring wave. I don't know. HMPV. A little bit of a rise towards the end. EVD68 is low at this time. And norovirus is high. And I really hope norovirus is peaking. Norovirus was just exceptionally bad this year. All right, taking a look at the Midwest. COVID levels are high at this time, and we can see here towards the end there's a wonky movement, but almost was going up once again. RSV may have peaked and may be starting to drop. Both are in high levels, as is influenza A. Influenza A still rising slightly. Influenza B really started taking off, and then a wonky movement came into play. We'll have to see where that goes. HMPV is listed at high, and that has dropped a little bit. EVD68, not terribly concerning. It's very low, actually. And norovirus at this time is still listed high, and if you look, it may be going up again, even if you take out that wonky movement. So very high for norovirus. Let's do a wastewater site in the Midwest region. Let's go to South Bend, Indiana, and see what's going on there. And South Bend, Indiana is listed in the high category at this time when it comes to COVID. It is dropping slowly, and RSV at this time looks like that is starting to drop. Influenza A hopefully has peaked and is going to start to drop. Influenza B starting to rise a little bit, something we are seeing many different places. HMPV and EVD68 very low at this time. Norovirus rising a little bit still. Not good to see. Hepatitis A, no detection since last year. And Mpox, no issues with that at this time. Moving on now to the Northeast. And in the Northeast, we do see, if you take out the wonky movement, there was a slight rise for COVID at this time. And you're going to see that it's similar to the rise that is being shown from the CDC site. So finally, they are in agreement. RSV and COVID are both listed at high. RSV was dropping. Now that drop has really slowed off. Influenza A was starting to drop. Then a wonky movement came along. I think it's still dropping. Influenza B, wonky movement at the end. But overall, it saw a rise. Now maybe it's starting to drop. HMPV was dropping. EVD68 is low. And norovirus has peaked. And hopefully is going to continue dropping soon. I don't know. We'll see there. Just a little bit of a movement at the end. Let's take a look at what's going on in Stamford, Connecticut. We have not looked there in a while. In Stamford, Connecticut, the COVID level is medium at this time. Little bit of a rise at the end. We'll have to see what comes of that. RSV is high, and I honestly can't say RSV is dropping. It looks like it wants to drop, but it's still just hovering in a high range. Influenza A is high and dropping. Influenza B is really starting to get high there. That's not good. And HMPV is high but dropping. Norovirus at this time, it's rising. That's not good. It's starting to rise once again. Hepatitis A, not much going on with that. Mpox, and nothing going on with Mpox there. Alrighty, let's stop for a second and take a hydration break. A little bit of a different one today. Coffee is my choice of drink today. Make sure you keep yourself hydrated. It is very important to do so. And really the best thing to drink is water, but hey, we're having a rainy day here. I feel like coffee is a good idea today. Alrighty, moving on now to the south. And in the south, we do see that the levels are still high for COVID. Look at that. I mean, each time they try to drop, they go up a little bit once again. So that's not something we like to see. Still high for RSV, but this has come down significantly from the start of the year. Influenza A is dropping. Influenza B overall has been trending higher. I hope that peaks and drops soon. Again, that's not very high, though. I mean, it's still in the low category. HMPV is trending upward a little bit. EVD68 is low at this time. And norovirus is high, but dropping at this time. All right, we have a large area to pick from in the south. How about we go to Atlanta, Georgia, and see what's going on there. Clayton wastewater site. And COVID is low. RSV is listed at high, but you can see here, that doesn't look all that high on the chart. But I'm not the one that makes up these categories. Influenza A is high, and there's actually a little bit of rise for Influenza A. That could be a wonky movement. We'll keep an eye on that. Influenza B is starting to rise here, something we're seeing in a lot of wastewater sites. HMPV is low, EVD68 is low, norovirus was dropping, and hopefully that wonky movement is wrong and it continues to drop. Hepatitis A is low, Mpox is low at this time. All right, let's go out to the West Coast now and see what's going on there. And the West Coast, bunch of wonky movements at the end, but overall, COVID was not dropping anymore. It was rising a little bit, so it is in the medium category. I can't get a sense of what direction that's actually going to head next. RSV is still listed high. It was dropping, then it slowed down, then it started dropping again, so hopefully it goes back to dropping. Influenza A, seems like all these have a little bit of a problem, with exceptions to Influenza B. Influenza A is still listed high. Influenza B is high, and overall has been really starting to rise. That's something we're going to keep an eye on. HMPV is low. EVD68 is low. Norovirus is high and dropping. So now let's take a look at a wastewater site out on the West Coast. And you know what? Let's go down to San Diego and see what's going on there. Flu has been bad there. There was a pediatric death once again. I believe they've had 4 now in San Diego this virus season. COVID listed at low. RSV is listed at high and dropping some. Influenza A is high, not really moving much there. Influenza B is high but flat. HMPV is low. And norovirus, wow. Norovirus is still listed high, only dropping slightly. And hepatitis A, you did have a detection of that on February 9th. Now going over to the CDC site. And we can see here that on the CDC site, the national level for COVID did stay, this is COVID, right? Yep, did stay in the high category at this time, but it's borderline getting ready to go down to moderate. We hope it will. Now when we take a look at all the regions, the Northeast has rose a little bit. We do see that the Midwest, and let me show that to you. Here's the Midwest right here. Midwest is still in the high category. The South at this time is dropping slightly, while the Midwest did rise slightly. And we see the Northeast, there it is. Northeast had that slight rise. And the West Coast did drop a little bit, but the West Coast and the Northeast at this time are in the moderate category, which is not bad because they did finally correct what happened with the Northeast. Remember, it was showing a really high level. Now taking a look at influenza A data from the CDC, and we can see here, though it is very high, and it is, signs here that maybe it's starting to level off, and maybe it's finally going to peak and drop. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that this does happen. And when we take a look at RSV and wastewater, we do see RSV is starting to drop at this time. Let's go back to influenza A for a second. And let's go to a few states, shall we? And it starts us off with Alabama. So we might as well just show Alabama. We can see here Birmingham, Tuscaloosa. Well, Tuscaloosa is a little bit southwest there, but Birmingham is, yeah, very high for you at this time. Coming down now, let's go down to Hawaii. I don't know how many wastewater sites there. Hawaii is coming up in the high category, and we were starting to see reports that flu is starting to increase there. But yet, when we take a look at the influenza-like illness map, Hawaii's in the very low or even minimal category. Yeah, make that one make sense. It doesn't make much sense to me. Sticking out west for a second, let's see what's going on in Washington State. And Washington for influenza is coming up very high. Take a look at the Seattle area. Yeah, ooh, really high for influenza, so you want to be extra careful there. Taking a look, we'll go somewhere in the east now. How about Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania is still coming up high. Even a few very high sites mixed in southeast Pennsylvania. I think that's going to stay. As you know, we did have that Eagles parade here in southeast Pennsylvania. Let's go down to Mississippi. We don't talk about Mississippi enough. You don't have very many wastewater sites. And we can see here very high levels when it comes to influenza there. And we'll end today on 2 states for COVID. Let's go to, CDC COVID page. And we can see here for COVID, things are listed high in Alabama. And now we're going to go to, how about we go to Florida? Because it is the winter time. Snowbirds are down there. And surprisingly, your COVID levels are low. And I wonder, is your influenza levels the same? Let's take a look there real quickly, shall we? I wonder if your influenza levels are the same when it comes to flu. Let's see. Florida. Ah, much higher there. Again, snowbirds are down there. It's crowded down there right now. And spring break's going to be starting up soon. I always like to remind you each year, spring break could be something that gets COVID moving once again, especially with that new LP 8.1 variant coming in play soon. Alrighty, folks, that does it for the Sunday edition of the Virus Update. We'll have another update again tomorrow. If you enjoyed this update, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below. Help me get to 10,000 subscribers this year. Share this video with anyone you know. Hit that notification bell. And, of course, leave all comments down below. I will see you all again next time. Until I see you again next time, stay safe, everyone, and have a fantastic Sunday afternoon. Thanks for watching.